Good morning. Thanks so much for joining me in this breath class. We have the opportunity today to take 45 minutes to be grounded and mindful, but to actually explore your breath in a conscious way. We breathe on average about 21,000 times a day. Our body does it super well for us, but we have the opportunity right now to focus on the breath in a way that hopefully will boost your physical well-being and your emotional resilience. Can't accomplish all of this in 45 minutes, of course. So my goal today is just to give you some sense of what might be possible through this conscious practice. To learn more, I'm going to suggest first that you read this book, and in the chat I have the author's name and the title. It's called Breath, The New Science of a Lost Art. It's an incredible book that James Nestor just wrote. It's on the New York Times bestseller list. You may have seen it. It has the science presented in a way that's a narrative of his own interest in this topic and what he learned about his own dysfunctional breathing and then how he changed it. So it's a great read, and the science with all the citations are in the back. So I highly recommend it. In addition to that, if you can, sign up for the 4-week class that I'll be offering through the Wellness Center at Northwestern on Tuesdays, 11:30 to 12:30. So it's nurecreation.com. It'll start February 2nd for those 4 consecutive Tuesdays. We'll have an hour each week to delve into the science. I'll give you some assignments. You can practice those, and then we'll have a community experience where we're building this knowledge together and hopefully, again, nurturing our well-being. So thanks again for taking the next 45 minutes. And I'd like you to begin by closing your eyes if that's comfortable. If you're in a space that has some distractions, I'd like you to, for example, move your phone away, close the door. See if you can enter a place where you're not going to be disturbed and where you're going to be able to give this your full attention. We're going to start on a chair. In about 10 or 15 minutes, we'll move to the floor. So if you need to go right now and find a yoga mat or blanket, any kind of thing like that that's going to make it more comfortable, please do so. And just set your intention to be here one breath at a time. If you are on a chair, I'd like your spine to be somewhat upright. I did ask you just to close your eyes, so I apologize. You might want to change for just a minute and watch how I'm sitting on this chair, which is not supported by the back. I'm going to come forward so that my feet are flat, about hip distance apart, and I'm not going to be rounding back, and I'm not going to be arching forward. But ideally, I have a pretty upright spine. And if that's super difficult for you, you can get some pillows and put them behind you. But as best you can, you want to have your spine be upright. So as you close your eyes and let your hands just rest on your lap, I want you to bring your focus to your feet on the floor, feeling that support. Your hands on your lap, your clothing on your body. And just start being aware of your breath in your body. So there are lots of places you might notice your breath. You might notice your low belly moving as you breathe. You might notice your upper chest moving. You might feel the breath entering your nostrils. So just notice that your breath is always with you. Usually the autonomic nervous system takes care of it. We don't have to give it any attention. But the benefits of giving it attention are profound. How you breathe is fundamental to every single process in your physical body, your digestive system, to the amount of bone density you have. About 90% of us have breath patterns that are dysfunctional in some way, and that interferes with the ideal functioning of these body systems. In addition, by conscious control, we have the opportunity to regulate the central nervous system and move into a calmer state when we need to do so. All of this is available 24 hours a day, no gym membership required, and it's always with you. So taking this time to understand this process is one of the most important things you can do, not just during COVID, when of course this is going to strengthen both your immune system and your respiratory function, which is amazing at this time, but always and forever, a great investment in your own well-being. So you might have noticed right now where you're feeling the breath, And I'm going to ask you to bring your attention to your nose. And if you didn't feel it there, see if you can notice that moment when you breathe in and your nostrils are going to widen somewhat, expand. And then as you exhale through both nostrils, you might feel the air, if you put your finger there, it's going to be warmer than it was. It's been warmed in your body. And you might also feel that the nostrils somewhat contract. Now, you might also notice that you're not breathing through your nose normally, inhaling and exhaling, and that's the very first part of a healthy breath pattern. You might have a cold, you might have a sinus infection, or there might be some structural obstacle that makes it difficult for you to breathe through your nose, and that's something to take note of. If, however, it's just a habit, and you notice that you don't normally breathe through your nose, that's one of the most important things you can do to improve your overall well-being. Your nose has tissues that produce something called nitric oxide, NO. It was discovered in 1998 by 3 scientists who were working independently, but they all got the Nobel Prize in Medicine for studying this incredible process that actually brings 6 times more oxygen into your body. That is, when you breathe through your nose exclusively versus breathing through your mouth. There are many, many other reasons to breathe through your nose, which again, the course will go into in James Nestor's book. The whole first quarter of the book is about that process of breathing through your nose and why it matters. So if you can breathe through your nose, that's what you'd like to do. And you can take the next 35 minutes with me to start practicing. If it's just a habit that you are not familiar with, let's try it now. So your lips are going to just lightly touch together. Your teeth are going to slightly be apart. And ideally, the tongue is up at the roof of your mouth, right behind the upper teeth. So see what that feels like. And just notice what it's like to breathe in and out through your nose. Now, your nose that you see on the front of your face is actually about 30% of the capacity of your nose. The rest of your nasal cavity lies just above the roof of your mouth. It's that whole space. So take a moment now to just visualize that whole space above the roof of your mouth that's part of your nasal cavity. And as you breathe in, you'll breathe in through the nostrils. Imagine your breath traveling that whole way down the throat and down into your lungs. That's on your inhale. And as you exhale, you're going to imagine the breath coming from the lungs, up the throat, across the floor of the mouth, and then down out both nostrils. So just bring your awareness to that process. And know that just breathing in through your nose is nurturing your well-being. And now just bring your focus to the length of that inhale and exhale. You might need to count to kind of compare, but notice how you're breathing and count out. Maybe you're breathing in on a count of 1, 2, 3, and then even out your exhale. So it's also on a count of 3, 2, 1. And whatever that count is, I'd like you to try and even out the duration of your inhale and your exhale. Again, breathing through your nose, feeling the air entering into the, imagine entering into the chambers of your lungs. And as you exhale, that warmed air being released, CO2. So notice what it feels like to have an even inhale and an even exhale. In our culture, it's often the inhale that's exaggerated. We're more comfortable with that. Inhale is a taking in and invigorating feeling. So notice that. Is there a slight energetic lift perhaps on your inhale? And on the exhale, there's a downward movement of air energetically, and perhaps you feel a more relaxing or grounding sensation on the exhale. So notice that. Do you feel any difference? And you might not. But there's a nourishing and expansion, as I mentioned, around the nostrils on the inhale. And there's a letting go or a contraction. You felt that perhaps at the nostrils on the exhale. That's a pattern that is a healthy breath pattern. It's like, almost like a wave action. And it's going to be part of every single movement that we're going to be using here for the next few minutes. So see if you can sense that. You might have a visualization of a wave, which is helpful for me. As I inhale, it's almost like a wave, the great wave, if you've seen that piece of art where you're floating on the top of the wave, and then at the exhale, you're slowly coming back down on the inside. Or you might imagine you're sitting on a beach, and on the inhale, the water is coming towards your feet, and as the wave goes back, the wave recedes, the sand is visible. Just see if you can feel that rhythm of your breath. It's an even inhale and an even exhale. So for many of us, as I've mentioned, the inhale is the more comfortable part of the breath. It's we're going on to the next thing and let's get going. And the problem with that is it can be a dysfunctional pattern. If you're breathing, just emphasizing your inhale, you're going to be breathing up higher in your chest, and you're never going to take a full exhalation. It's actually the exhalation and the amount of carbon dioxide in your system that cues these chemoreceptors in your brain to take the next breath. So the exhalation pattern is extremely important to our overall well-being. So we're going to work with that for just a minute to let you explore and see, how does it feel to emphasize the exhalation? Is it something that's very unusual? What do you notice when you do? So I'm going to invite you to stay with, again, this focus on the nose, but we're going to do a little bit of work with the exhale pattern. So if your eyes are closed, blink your eyes open. You might notice actually right now, before we go on, anything that feels different in your body or in your mind. You might feel a little bit more grounded. Your breathing pattern already might be a little lighter and a little slower, which is all ideal, something we're working towards. So I'm going to invite you to take your thumb on each nostril in just a minute, and we're going to alternate breathing in through one nostril. So you'll close one, and then you're going to release that, and you're going to exhale through both nostrils. So it'll look like this. It's a variation on what's called alternate nostril breathing in yoga, if you're familiar with that. So we're going to start by closing the right nostril, and I'll take my right thumb, just gently pressing, below where the bone is on the cartilage. I'm going to inhale just through the left, counting maybe to 3 or 4, note the length of that, and then exhale the same duration. Remove your nose and exhale through both nostrils the same amount of time. I'm going to count on 4. So next time, of course, we're alternating. Close off the left, breathe in for a count of whatever yours is. 4 for me. Exhale on a count of 4. Once you've got it, feel free to close your eyes. It'll help you drop in and really visualize the breath traveling across that nasal cavity. That will help actually calm your mind and move you more into this breath pattern. Inhaling for a count of 4, perhaps exhaling the equal duration through both nostrils. So feel this nourishing breath on the inhale, bringing in air. And imagine it being absorbed, expanded through your body on that exhalation. So we're taking in, but we don't want to just take in. We want to send this energy throughout the body. It's digested, it's absorbed. It doesn't nourish us unless it's sent outward into every cell, which ideally we're doing right now through this practice. So take 2 more rounds, you'll even it out. And after you've evened out both sides, just pause for a moment, eyes closed. If that's comfortable, just notice how that feels. We're going to do one more thing to emphasize this exhale pattern. This time breathing through both nostrils, but we're going to change the count. We're going to try and count up, increasing the duration of the exhale 1 count at a time, so that you double the duration of your exhale. So I'm going to do 4. If you're on 3, of course, that's fine. If you're at 5, that's fine, but I'm going to count for 4, which I think is probably pretty accessible. If during this practice you find any feeling of discomfort, distress, anxiety, you just let go of it, okay? But what I'm going to try and do is help you experience this exhale pattern, which, as I mentioned, is a clearing. It's something that's often ignored in our daily life. So it'll begin like this. I'm starting again with a count of 4. closing my eyes, breathing through both nostrils, inhaling on a count of 1, 2, 3, 4, and then equal on the exhale first for 4, 3, 2, and 1. I'm going to keep the inhale for that count of 4. The exhale I'm going to try for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So keep this pattern one more time. Inhale is 4, and exhale is 5. Now, if you find that you're grasping for that inhale, then go back to 4. But if you'd like to try adding on, I'm going to go to 6. My inhale is 4. My exhale is 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And the inhale comes in on 4. It should be that easy rhythm. There shouldn't be a grasping for the inhale. If there is, then you want to go back just one count to a place where it's an even, elegant, smooth transition. If you'd like to step it up, I'm going up to 7 on the exhale this time. Try it out. Again, if it's uncomfortable, take it back a step. And the last step up for me, since I started with a count of 4 and the inhale, will be 8 on the exhale. If you started with 3, it would be 6. So at your own count, you're taking it up on your inhale, and then you're trying to double that count on your exhale. Now that may be too much. It's just an exploration and an experiment. Try what feels comfortable on your exhale. At a minimum, it's 1 count more. So let's stay with 3 rounds of whatever you're doing, exhaling to some extent longer than inhaling. Take 1 more round. And then just let your breath return to any pattern that it wants. No manipulating, no counting. Just notice again anything that you observe about how you're feeling. And then as you blink your eyes open, I'll let you know that that is a practice to move into the parasympathetic or rest and digest central nervous system. When we breathe up in the chest, when we breathe fast, we breathe up here, we tell our brain to move into fight or flight. And that's great. I was just thinking the other day, a little kitten ran in front of my car and I went, again, it's like, I don't want to hit the kitten. And I didn't, and I swerved. And then of course I went, great. You let go. That's a natural breath pattern. If you're always up here, oh my God, there's an email. There's a kitten. I have to do that. I didn't get that done. Then you can see that that is not a healthy breath pattern. So one of the ways to break that habit is to practice with this exhale emphasis. By moving into the double exhale, you have the opportunity to really calm your central nervous system and to feel more grounded and stable. And if that's happening for you, that's awesome. If it didn't happen, it's your first time doing it. So just know that that's a possibility, and maybe you'd like to try that on your own after this practice today. So we've covered 2 points actually for the most ideal breath pattern. One is to breathe in and out through your nose. The second is to perhaps experiment with regulating your central nervous system by using a longer exhale, ideally double the duration of your inhale. So we're going to move now to your space that's either on a yoga mat, a towel, something super comfy. So do that now, and I'm going to do the same. You want your clothes to be loose around your waist especially. So if you do have any tight clothing on and you're hopefully by yourself, you can undo the belt zipper and find a lot of space around your low belly, which is where we're going to start. So you can sit for the moment. I'm going to get situated here, and then we're going to lay on our backs. So the last thing I want to help you with today is to understand what we mean by breathing deeply. And if you're like me, if someone said take a deep breath, I would have probably taken it through my mouth and gone, and my shoulders are up and I'm breathing up here. And that's absolutely the opposite of what's a healthy breath pattern. To breathe deeply means to breathe low into your low abs, that is below the belly button right here. So we're going to find that place. I know my head is cut off, but just to show you here, I want to do a side view. You're going to have two hands on your upper chest. And I want you to notice when you breathe what happens. So take, ideally, again, this breath through your nose, breathing in, and then exhaling, breathing out. Now notice if your shoulders come up when you inhale, if your chest moves out, and notice perhaps as you exhale, your shoulders drop and maybe you feel your hands moving back towards the back of your body. That may or may not happen. What we'd like to do is quiet this whole area from moving just for the moment, just to move the breath down into the lower abs. So to do that, what I'm going to do is press my hands on my chest while I inhale and then draw them down towards the floor. And as I do that, I actually get a stretch in these muscles called scalene. So it might feel really nice. It actually does to me. It's almost like getting a little neck release. So try that now. As you inhale, two movements. One is putting pressure on your chest to keep it quiet. And the second is pulling your hands down slightly. It's going to maybe even move your shoulders away from your ears. So see how that feels. Now here's your challenge. Leave one hand there. The other hand now moves to the low belly, below the belly button. And I want you to see if you can keep the upper chest completely quiet. You've got that pressure there on the inhale as you find the belly expanding at the same time. So as you inhale, nothing moves on the upper chest, but the belly expands like a balloon and the hand there moves away from your body. So I'm going to take this top off so you have a little bit more of a visual of what we're doing here. So you can even exaggerate it. I really send that belly out on the inhale. So here's my inhale way out with the belly. I'm really exaggerating it. And on the exhale, I'm going to use some of those low ab muscles to pull the belly button back. It's not a crunch like you're at the gym. It's about a 30% of your capacity in terms of your low ab work, but they are working. So I had a student tell me her abs were tight after doing breathing. Well, yeah, I mean, this doesn't necessarily have to work all day long. You could leave this area completely flaccid. And by the way, let me just give you a demo. If you're bent over your desk like this, you cannot take a deep breath. You literally can't. You can't open this throat part. And you also, these muscles will be flaccid. You cannot use them. So that's why we're sitting up as best we can. And you're going to really discover that these muscles are awake when they normally might not be. So that's the pattern we're looking for. Now, for some people, they reverse the breath pattern. I'm not even going to say it to confuse you, but if this is feeling weird to you, it's the inhale is expansion. And you can remember that, I do, by the nostrils. Remember how we started? When you took in air, they widened. Just like that, the belly expands. The nostrils contracted and your belly is contracting back. The navel moves towards the spine. So any amount of movement is fantastic. Might not be something you're used to. And it's much harder sitting up to keep an upright spine. So now we're going down to the floor. So now that you've got that pattern, we're going to try it without having to resist gravity. So gently lowering yourself on the mat, feet will be flat, hip distance, and you're just going to gently use your elbows to lower yourself down. And just check one thing about your head. You'd like to have your neck relatively even on all four sides. You're not thrusting your chin up nor tucking your chin down. You actually could feel that cervical curve. That is, this 7 vertebrae are not flat on the floor. So that's what we're looking for. And you're going to do the same thing. You're going to put one hand on your upper chest, right below the collarbones, and one hand on the low belly. And again, this pressure on the upper chest helps quiet these muscles that might be super used to breathing, moving while you breathe. So we're training them to just stop for the moment, just for the moment, while we're learning to move the deep breath down into the low belly. So see if you can find it. Here's my quiet upper chest. On the inhale, I expand my low belly. On the exhale, I pull it in. And you might pull it in so much that you find your low back flattening. And that's okay. You can really practice here. On the inhale, blow that balloon up towards the ceiling. On the exhale, pull it in. You can use your hand on the low belly to a kinesthetic helper to help remind you to do that. Now, why are we doing this? Why would you want your belly to flop out like that? It's certainly not part of American culture. We're the skinny jeans. So you can see how so many things conspire against proper breathing just from that alone. I already mentioned posture and slumping over computers and cell phones, and this whole idea about not showing your belly, that you pull your belly in. I think my mother told me that starting in I don't know, age 8. So this is counter conditioning, and it might not be happening at all. So again, give yourself a break, be totally kind and patient. Why we do this, though, is that the diaphragm, your major breathing muscle, is located at the base of your ribs. You can't directly feel it, but it's shaped like a dome. And when you inhale, we're making space for that diaphragm to expand. Same concept. It moves down a little. The lungs accept air. There's actually a vacuum that brings the air to the base of the lungs. On the exhale pattern, the diaphragm contracts and it actually pushes up, helps get all the base of the lungs to expel air. So you can imagine if you are not breathing in this way, there's no room for the diaphragm to work like that. It is part of this wave action. It's actually a pump. So I also think of a bellows, opening up on the inhale, creating all this space, and then that pushing it together, that clearing pattern that we mentioned on the exhale. So if that helps you, any of these visualizations, keep that in mind, but see if you can just connect with that deep belly movement, which is, again, antithetical to most of us in our own physical lives. In so many ways, it conspires against us. You can also imagine if you're under stress, there's a bracing, and for many people, that's a contraction in that area. And when researchers talked about kids, if you look at a baby, they belly breathe like this. When do they stop? One of the times that's most common is when you go to school, when you have to deal with people who are outside your family and you literally brace yourself for the kickball coming at you at gym or whatever it is. But that is a time when many people stop breathing in a healthy way. It's inherent. We knew how to do it. We've just stopped for lots of the reasons I've mentioned. So see how that feels. And now if you've got it, you can take both hands on your low belly and just let that expand into both hands and feel that rhythm of the diaphragm, providing the most space for the lungs to expand. And it almost feels like a massage in my belly again, because so much of the day we don't stretch this area. If you think about digestive diseases where there's contraction and tightness, again, all of this is allowing oxygen and blood flow. Diseases like irritable bowel syndrome, this is helping soothe that area, getting more flow of blood and oxygen and boosting that area in terms of well-being. Okay, so that's the low belly breath, which is great. Now we're just going to add on one more thing, and that's moving up to the thoracic area or the chest area. So you're going to take 4 fingers around the front of your ribs and your thumb around the back, or you can just put your palms and cup the sides of your body. So for women, you're just below a bra strap and you feel the base of your ribs, the very bottom of the ribs, you're gripping right there. Now what I want you to do is bring your awareness there, and can you feel on an inhale any movement? So just notice, take an inhale through your nose. And as you exhale, notice if there's any movement in that area. Again, these intercostal muscles. I had a client, I was working with a woman in her 80s who started crying when we finally connected to this. There was such a release. She was so tight. She had never, ever moved these muscles while breathing for years. So it's really very common that this is going to be a small movement or no movement at all. And again, this is just an exploration. First time you're doing this, please be patient and compassionate. But you're trying to imagine that you are moving the sides away from your body on the inhale, again, expanding. So your hands are moving right and left away from the midline of your body. And on the exhale, they're moving together, contracting. And I'm actually putting pressure the same way that I put pressure on my chest on the exhale. So on the inhale, my fingers widen, expand, my ribs go sideways or laterally. And on the exhale, I literally push them together. And then the fingers on top are pushing them down towards the floor. Again, this contraction squeezing the air out of the mid lungs. So see if you can find that. Maybe you'll find literal space between the ribs while you inhale. Feels, again, for me, it feels so good, this opening and stretching. And then exhale, use your hands to help the muscles understand what they should be doing. So there's a widening and expanding and accepting and invigorating on the inhale everywhere we move. And exhale is that absorbing, digesting, pushing everything, clearing, so we get ready for the next inhale. So see how that feels, and then see if you can put together both of those pieces. That is, on the inhale, you're going to feel the belly expand, and now you're going to feel the ribs expand. And then in the exhale, you're going to feel the ribs contract, and then you're going to feel the belly scooping up and in. See if you can find that pattern in a rhythmic, even way. And as you do this, you might get the sensation, I do sometimes, of my body and my breath just breathing me. I'm just the observer and so absorbed in this process that's so nourishing and so calming. Breath coming in. If your mind does get involved in this, I didn't say this before, but it's a common meditation mantra to say to yourself as you're breathing in the words breathing in. And then as you exhale, you can have your mind say silently breathing out. I myself find it takes so much focus for these muscles to start doing their job that's enough for me to stay grounded and embodied, to move your awareness from the top, above the eyebrow line, basically down into your body. So if you're really focused on that, you've probably noticed your thoughts are not many. So last piece of this we're going to put together, and that's going to move us into the upper chest. And for most people, again, lifting the chest, spreading the collarbones on the inhale is something we do every single day. But here's one more thing to think about. I imagine my visualization is balloons right under my armpits, and I'm going to move my thumbs just up higher. So again, if you were a woman with a broad, be above that. So the bones that are just under your armpits. And as you inhale, again, they're like little wings or little balloons. Can you feel them widening? Shoulders don't lift. And exhale, can you feel them coming together and maybe dropping down? And just check the shoulders. This is not the shoulders. It's widening below the shoulders and then contracting on the exhale. Again, this could be a place in your body you're like, what is she talking about? Nothing's moving there. Very common. Took me a long time to even have the visualization of what's supposed to be going on there. So don't worry about anything happening physically at this moment. You're just coming into this idea. And if it helps to lift your arms away from your body a little more, sometimes putting them in what we call a goalpost, arms extend from the shoulders, palms towards the ceiling, and then you bend at a 90-degree angle. Or just making any amount of space there under the armpits so that you can imagine your arms extending right and left away from you on the inhale and just slightly coming together on that exhale. It's super subtle. You might feel nothing happening at this point in your body, but just imagine the breath flowing all the way through your torso, from your neck down to the hips. And then we're going to put this together with the nose in just a minute. So this is an ideal functional breath pattern. And this is a lot to throw at you in 45 minutes, but this is what we're going to finish with in terms of instruction today. So I just going to give you the opportunity, if it feels like you'd like to add on this visualization, we're going to do it now. And that is breathing in from the nose and imagining your breath traveling across the floor of your mouth up there in the nasal cavity into your throat all the way down into your belly, which of course it isn't doing, but we're going to think of sending it down there because you're going to inhale into the low belly. The exhale pattern from the bottom up, you'll pull the belly back, the ribs will come together, the chest will drop, and you'll imagine the breath coming up the throat across the nasal cavity and out through your nostrils. So don't worry about your body moving or any hand movements. Just concentrate on that visualization. So here it comes through my nose. I'm doing a 4-count inhale, so I'm going to count it for you. So I'm sorry, I should have said that. So it works really well with 4 because it's a 4-part breath. So on the inhale, I imagine it through my nose across the floor. On the 2, I bring it into my throat and upper chest. On the 3, into my ribs. And on the 4, I feel that belly expand. The exhale reverses the pattern. On the 4, the belly pulls back. On the 3, the ribs come together. On count 2, my chest drops. And count 1, the air comes out and exits through both nostrils. So see how that feels. Here comes the breath on 1, 2 into the upper chest, 3 in the ribs, 4, the low belly expands. Exhaling the reverse pattern, squeezing the air out from the bottom of the lungs with the low belly, the ribs, the chest, and then it comes all the way out through the nostrils. So see what that's like on a count of 4. If that's too long, ignore my count and just feel the sensation of the breath traveling deeply into your body, which means it's being absorbed in every cell, nourishing every muscle, every tissue, every organ, including your brain. This is promoting brain clarity. Every body part is going to function better with more oxygen. So see what this feels like. You're still at an even inhale and an even exhale, whatever that is for you. Might be one body part that you notice isn't really moving, or you feel like you're skipping through. And again, that's totally normal. This is not our normal way to breathe. And people have asked me, do you breathe like this? Well, when I consciously breathe, I breathe like this. But trust me, I don't breathe consciously all the time, and it isn't going to be helpful. If you're running a marathon, you're not going to be breathing this way. So this is a way to breathe when you're, let's say, sitting at your computer and reading something, and you have that upright spine, and you can focus on your breath. Or before you go to bed, you're going to be laying down and you say, oh, this is a great time to reinforce this breathing pattern. And then what happens pretty soon is you start noticing when you're not breathing this way and you say, oh my gosh, I'm not breathing through my nose. I'm going to work on that today, just breathing through my nose. And I noticed, oh, I had these tight jeans on. I really didn't belly breathe at all today. I'm going to practice that when I can take these off and I come home from work. I'm going to change my clothes and I'm going to spend 5 minutes just focusing on expanding my belly. And then pretty soon, it starts to become a habit, and you notice when you're not doing it. So take one more round of this breath, and then we're going to sit back up and see what it's like to do the same thing, not supported by the floor. And notice how you adjust or don't adjust. So when it feels right, just moving super mindfully and slowly, you'll come back to a seated position on your chair if you want to move that back, or if you're comfortable sitting on the floor, stay there. We're just going to finish up with that possibility. And again, I'm just going to review what we've talked about because I've thrown quite a few things in here. The first one was challenging you to breathe through your nose. The second one was to know that you can manipulate your breath to calm your central nervous system. I thought I'd share that because most people need that one. Reduce anxiety if you're feeling revved up and you need to bring yourself down. That's a really good practice. That was doubling the rate or duration of the exhale compared to the inhale. And Dr. Andrew Weil talks about that. You can go to his website. He also said, by the way, I didn't give you this quote at the beginning, but he said if there was one tip that he would want to give to everyone to improve their well-being, it would be to learn how to breathe properly. The one tip, and he has quite a few for us that he thinks are important, but the one is to breathe properly. So the nose, calming your central nervous system, and then I gave you this 4-part breath pattern, which is the ideal breath pattern. So sitting up, see what it's like to try it sitting up. It might feel a little bit different. Breath through the nose, across the floor, nasal cavity, all the way down into your belly, and then feeling the belly pull back. The ribs come in, the chest drop. You might drop your chin just a tad at the end of that exhalation. Just see what that's like for practice. You're not going to walk around lifting your chin, but you might want to experiment on the inhale with just lifting your chin just a little bit. Make sure there's room in the front of your back, front of your throat. And as you exhale, your chin goes back a little and drops just a little, and you'll feel the back of your neck get a little longer. So you can just try that too. See what, make sure there's room. What is your pattern basically in terms of how your head is situated on your neck? For most of us, there's a tendency to chin thrust, is why I mentioned it. So you can send your chin back a little bit, drop it just a millimeter. This isn't a big movement. And perhaps you'll find that your head feels like it's a little bit more supported on your spinal column. It's quite amazing. Once you find that place, it'll feel really good. You'll feel a release in the shoulders and a freedom in the neck area. So that is all that I have for you today. Let me just reinforce one more time that this book is a huge benefit to read. I just can't say enough about it. And I'd love to see you in a 4-week class where we all commit to these practices. We have the opportunity to support each other, get feedback, and learn the science, which can keep you motivated. If you think nothing's happening, I'm practicing, I don't feel anything different, just understand that there are so much research that supports what I'm teaching you, and it's nurturing your well-being, whether you can see it or not. It's happening right there at a cellular level. So thank you so much for your time and energy. If you have any